Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalam ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una. وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So it says, باب من قال لأخيه يا كافر. Somebody who says to his brother, O kafir. So it says, حدثنا إسماعيل قال حدثني مالك عن عبد الله بن دينار عن عبد الله بن عمر أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أيما رجل قال لأخيه كافر فقد باء بها أحدهما. Right, this is a super duper Sahih hadith. So Malik narrating from Abdullah ibn Dinar, one of the great tabi'een, and one of the great narrators from Abdullah ibn Umar. So there's many narrators from Abdullah ibn Umar, but of these great narrators from him are his freed slave Nafi', his son Salim, and Abdullah ibn Dinar. And I'm pretty sure Abdullah ibn Dinar is also the son of a slave. Uh, Double check. Abdullah ibn Dinar. I'm pretty sure that his father was a freed slave as well. Yeah. Um, I'll just quickly look him up his biography. So this is an idea, a concept that we've spoken about many times, is that prisoners of war were, through jihad, were brought into Muslim families and were so impressed by Islam and by Muslims that they became Muslim and they were eventually freed. And so we see many of the early Muslims, a number of the early Muslims, a number of the scholars of the early Muslims, they are either slaves or children of slaves. So that tells us that it was a success. These prisoners of war, these slaves, it was a success. It wasn't something crazy and barbaric and horrible. Um, so, um, trying to find. And often the name Dinar is often a slave's name. Um, so they have like slaves will often have soft names like Ata, gift, like um, uh, can't really find about his father here. Okay, no worries. I couldn't find his father, but it's likely that's the case that so Nafi' was the freed slave of Ibn Umar. He was one of the greatest narrators from him, greater than his son Salim. And Abdullah ibn Dinar, I think as well, he's at least a product of slavery. So again, the idea that slaves in Islam were treated in a very, very different way, and the idea is to bring the POWs, the prisoners of war, into the Muslim household so that they're exposed to Islam and they see the beauty. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, عَجِبَ رَبُّنَا مِنْ أَقْوَامٍ رَبُّنَا مِنْ أَقْوَامٍ يُسَاقُونَ إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ بِالسَّلَاسِلِ. The hadith is in Sahih Bukhari, that our Lord, it marvels at people who are dragged to paradise in chains, i.e., exactly this situation, where they or their parents are taken as prisoners, and then they serve in Muslim households, and they see the beauty of Islam from inside, and then they become Muslim. Okay. So he says, if a man, so go ahead if you can read 439, Fakhri.
Abdullah ibn Umar reported that the Messenger of Allah, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, if a man says to his brother, you are an unbeliever, it is true for one or the other of them.
Okay, so we shouldn't say that, basically, right? And subhanAllah, somebody asked me a question today. They said, there's this Muslim scholar in our country and he stole money, right? Basically, he collected money for charity and then he just stole it. Can we publicly mock him and make jokes about him, like call him Abdul Rolex, right? The slave of the Rolex, etc. Right? And so the point is, when you label somebody, one thing is it could be true or not. That's one issue. The other issue is, what's the use of doing that? So what is the benefit? Let's say, for example, I am a really bad person, okay? So I talk about Deen, but I'm a really bad person. Why do you want to say it publicly? What is the point? Say, okay, well, Fareed is collecting money and I need to stop people sending money to him because he's putting it in his own pocket, okay? So then you say, Fareed is doing this. Oh, Fareed lied about hadith, and so say, don't take his hadith class. So what's his hadith class got to do with his Arabic class? Right? And if you could say Fareed is lies about hadith or Fareed steals money, what's that got to do with something else? Right? And why does that make it a halal for you to joke about me? All right. So there's a mentality that we have in the West is that as soon as you do something wrong, you are free game and everybody can say anything about you as they want. That's it. You're just right, which is not true in Islam. Right. So it is of min bab al-darura, right? It's based on necessity. If we didn't say this harm would happen. Okay, so you tell the minimum number of people and the minimum of information and with as little disrespect as possible. That's all. So you have to tell people, I don't advise you to study with so and so because of this. That's all. If you could just say it to a group of people, then you say it to that. If you say it publicly, then you say it publicly. Whatever information that is not absolutely necessary, you don't say it. Right? Somebody asks you, marry so-and-so. Well, I don't advise that. And they say, why? Oh, because of this. And then you add a bunch of extra information that you don't need to mention. This is now riba, now it's haram. Right? So we say that we shouldn't. So while it is true to say, if one person says to the other person, you're a kafir, then that's a very bad thing to do, right? But it doesn't mean that we should go around doing it if it is true. Right? We do it when there's necessity, when there's need to. Right? So you have to understand that there were munafiqeen in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, fake Muslims, genuine fake Muslims. They weren't exposed. Right? They weren't exposed. Right? But the Prophet ﷺ had told Hudayfa ibn Yaman their names so that they weren't put in power. Right? So the harm was avoided, and that's it. Right? Okay, so Hadith 44. 440. حدثنا سعيد بن داود قال حدثنا مالك أن نافع حدثه. Right? So this is exactly the same hadith. Okay? And so Imam Bukhari is narrating this hadith through two different chains. One chain goes from Sa'id ibn Dawood, and the other one goes through Ismail. Okay, so he has two of his teachers narrating this hadith from Imam Malik. Imam Malik heard this hadith from two people, right? From Nafi', from Ibn Umar, and from Abdullah ibn Umar. Okay, so the chances of error are very, very unlikely, right? The chances of error, the more different back supporting evidence you have for something in the past, the less room there is for error. So now the error is probably is really only in Ibn Umar, and Ibn Umar was so careful that again the likelihood of error is basically nil, right? But it is slightly different wording. So it says سعيد حدثنا سعيد بن داود قال حدثنا مالك أن نافعا حدثه أن عبد الله بن عمر أخبره أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إذا قال للآخر كافر فقد كفر أحدهما إن كان الذي قال له كافرا فقد صدق وإن لم يكن كما قال له فقد باء الذي قال له بالكفر. Right? It's the same basically same hadith, has slightly extra information there. Go ahead. So 440.
Abdullah ibn Umar reported that the Messenger of Allah, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, when someone says to another unbeliever, then one of them is an unbeliever. If the one to whom he says it is an unbeliever, he has spoke the truth. If that is not the case, then the one who said it has brought down disbelief on himself.
Right. So it doesn't literally mean you're a kafir, right? So if you said as a joke to somebody, oh, you're a kafir, right? That's going to be haram. You're playing around with big words. You can't do that. What if you just lied about it? You lied about somebody. Say, oh, that guy over there, he's a kafir. You're just lying. That's not kufr either, right? It's kufr when you label iman as kufr. So somebody is like, this person prays and fasts, and you say, no, this person is generally a disbeliever, even though there's no reason, right? So to believe that belief is disbelief itself, right? But normally it's going to be sinful. That's what it means. So it's not a good thing to do at all. Okay, so two concepts that we learn. One is, what here Imam Malik is doing. So Imam Bukhari is tapping into the knowledge of Imam Malik, who is, a dies like 80 years before him. So he's tapping into that knowledge through different chains, right? And then Imam Malik himself has two different chains for this. One chain that goes through Nafi' to Ibn Umar. The other one goes through Abdullah ibn Dinar to Ibn Umar. And through having different chains, you can what? Tap into the past, and you can verify the past, and you can also get extra information. So this narration and this narration are the same, but one of them has extra information which is useful, right? So this is like an inspector, right? You're trying to find out, okay, all the witnesses are saying the same thing. One or two of them has extra information. So whatever they agree on is verifying itself. The extra information is also useful, right? It's also useful, particularly when it comes to fiqh, right? Okay, gloating of enemies. باب شماتة الأعداء. حدثنا عبد الله بن محمد قال حدثنا السفيان عن سمي عن أبي صالح عن أبي هريرة أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يتعوذ من سوء القضاء وشماتة الأعداء. Okay, go ahead, Bismillah. 441.
Abu Hurairah reported that the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, used to seek refuge from an evil end and the gloating of enemies.
Right. So it's not that I care that you gloat over me, right? Gloating is like you laugh at me. Okay. It's a typo here. Gloating should be A-O-A, not A-O. What here it means is that your enemies you get, so should we care whether or not our enemies get the better of us? It doesn't matter, right? As a believer, your enemy harms you, you're a shaheed, right? So it doesn't matter how it works, right? So whether we win or lose, it doesn't matter. But still, the Prophet used to make dua for it, right? Oh Allah, don't put me in a situation where my enemy gets the better of me and can laugh at me, right? Unless it's good for me, right? They still make dua for these things. So there's a big difference in what you make dua for and what you're content with. They're not the same. So Allah, give me a long life and give me health, but I'm content with dying young and being sick, right? So it's not the same thing. One is the adab with Allah. How do you talk to Allah? Say, oh Allah, give me this. You see a nice car, right? So out of adab with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if there's a car and you want it, you should make dua for it. If there's some food that you want, you should make dua for it. Oh, but I have diabetes, I can't eat that food. Well, say, Allah, ask Allah to take your diabetes away. Yeah, but I can't because I have no, make dua anyway. So, but I'm content with my diabetes, but you still make dua for the other thing, right? So key concept. Always make dua for everything. Anything your nafs wants, make dua for it. So Allah, give me that in the dunya and the akhirah. Right? Always make dua because you're training yourself to be positive. You're training yourself to know that Allah is capable of doing anything. Right? Give me that thing. If it looks like something haram, say, Allah, give that to me in a halal way. Right? Whatever you want, always make dua. Right? Because you should be positive and understand that Allah can make anything happen. Okay, extravagance in building. So it says bab as-saraf, right? So what is as-saraf? What is being extravagance? Is there's no benefit in it. Meaning how you can't worship Allah with it. Okay? So you have a car whose engine is bigger than you need, right? Like most cars in America. You have a house that is bigger than you need. You have more food than you need. You have more clothes than you need. This is called saraf, right? You just you have something. So what Allah wants you to do is get your money and your time and continually convert it into good deeds. Right? That's what it is. Selling Ethereum for Bitcoin, selling Bitcoin for dollars, selling dollars for gold. Now you have something, right? Selling gold for property, right? Transferring things. So this is what we're supposed to do with our time and money and energy. Keep transferring it into good deeds, right? That's what we're trying to do in life. And so it's saraf when you're not doing that. So you have a car and your friend needs it, but you don't lend it to him. So it's just sitting there doing nothing, right? A huge house, nobody, right? Nobody in it. Whatever it is, like there's no use for it. So anything that there's no use for, get rid of it. Right? We don't need it, right? So we should get things. Oh, I need another pair of shoes. You ask yourself, how can I worship Allah with this other pair of shoes? Right? I need a different car. I need a car that's newer. How can you worship Allah with the newer car in a way that you can't worship Allah with the older car? Right? If you can come up with a plan, then it's fine. That's ibadah, right? So they say la ta'ata fil israfi wa la israfa fil ta'a. Right? There is no worship in wasting, but there's no waste in worship, right? So you have a use for it, right? You're going to buy your son, for example, Fakhri. His dad tells him, if you pass high school, you're at college now, Fakhri? Or still at high school?
High school.
You're still at high school. So he says, if you pass high school with these grades and you pray your 5 daily prayers and you memorize this much Quran, I will buy you a what? What kind of car do you want, Fakhri?
Nothing really extravagant, just like a good, reliable car.
Okay, but what would if I could give you any car, what would you get?
Um, like a Honda or something like that.
Go on, bro. Something cool.
All right. A Porsche.
Porsche. What kind of Porsche?
Um, the 911.
911. Thank you. I saw one this morning. Okay. Porsche 911. Right. I'm here in Malaysia now. So, mashallah, they like Porsches here. So, Porsche 911. Okay. So, is that a waste? Right. So, as a father, for example, so Fakhri, he's thinking as a son, like, yeah, I don't need a Porsche. Right. Like, what would be the point? Imagine, like, how much does a Porsche 911 cost? I have no idea. Right. So, what the kind of good deeds you could do with that kind of money is a lot. So then you basically wasted it. So it's kind of stupid. Like, I knew I had a friend who's your age, maybe a bit older, a few years older, and he had a Mustang or something like that. He bought it cheap. It was something like, I don't know, 15 or 20, something like that. And then he's like spending something like about $1,000 a month on fuel. So he's like, this is stupid. right? Like it's too expensive, right? So you're wasting it. Now, as a father, I'm trying to get my son to pray on time. Ya Allah, please. The kid's just lost. I'm trying to get my son to study. So I managed to convince him. I say, listen, if you pray your 5 daily prayers on time, stop doing this thing that I keep telling you not to do, and you get these grades, I will buy you a Mustang, right? And it costs him $50,000, $60,000 for this Mustang, whatever it is. And so that's not israf. It's not a waste because you achieved something, right? You did some good deed with it, right? You bought a nicer pillowcase for your guest room, right? So, well, I know different kind of people come to my room, gonna come and stay in my house, and so they'll feel, different. So, certain people they're used to this kind of thing, right? Or redid the shower or whatever it is, right? Um, there's various different ways you can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My fitna, my problem often was animals. So I'll be like, look at a cat and be like, how can I worship Allah through this cat? So you can just go and stroke the cat because it's nice, but that's israf. That's just like wasting your energy. Right? So you can intend, I'm going to show affection to an animal, right? That's now ibadah, right? So you've changed the reality of your moment, right, by connecting to Allah in that moment, right? But generally speaking, most of us, right, because we are super wealthy and we have tons of time, most of us waste time and waste money, right? We buy things that we don't need and we do things that we don't need, right? You're on the internet. Internet is this amazing thing that we won't even want to say the name on Judgment Day because we wasted so much time on the internet, right? So much valuable time that will never ever come back. Okay. So this is a key concept, right? And so, I think it was Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu. They went, they saw what he had in his room, and he had a saddle, and he had a sword, and I think he had a jug. That's all he had, right? That's all he had, right? And Sufyan al-Thawri, he said this. He said, like they asked you, what do you want in life? He said, "Baytun khali wa sanadun ali." He says, I want a house that doesn't have anything in it. I don't want lots of clutter. I don't want lots of things. And I want a chain of transmission that's very short between me and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Finding hadiths that are very short. Right? Okay. So it says, باب السرف في المال. حدثنا عبد الله ابن يوسف قال أخبرنا مالك. So notice all of these hadiths are from Malik. So we've mentioned this before. I mention it again, that the 6 books, they revolve around the Muwatta of Imam Malik. So Imam Malik is one of the greatest powerhouses of the 2nd century, right? He's a huge collector of hadith, of very sound hadith. And so everybody is traveling throughout the world, right, to study with Imam Malik. Yahya ibn Yahya al-Khurasani is coming from Khurasan in Central Asia to study with Imam Malik. And at the same time, Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi is coming from Spain to study with Imam Malik. Everybody's studying with Imam Malik, right? So these key hadiths are being collected, and then the authors of the 6 books, Bukhari, Muslim, etc. These people are studying with the students of Imam Malik, right? So it's very important to understand that. Besides other people, there are certain key powerhouses besides Imam Malik as well. Hamad ibn Zayd, Hamad ibn Salama, Sufyan al-Thawri, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, others, right? So it says, عن سهيل بن أبي صالح عن أبيه عن أبي هريرة أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الله يرضى لكم 3 ويسخط لكم 3. يرضى لكم أن تعبدوه ولا تشركوا به شيئا وأن تعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا وأن تناصحوا من ولاه الله أمركم ويكره لكم قيل وقال وكثرة السؤال وإضاعة المال. right? Um, so go ahead, Bismillah, 442. Really super important hadith.
Abu Hurairah reported that the Messenger of Allah, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, Allah is pleased with you about three things, and He is angry with you about three things. He is pleased that you worship Him, not associating anything with Him, that you all take hold of the rope of Allah, and that you give good counsel to those that Allah has put in authority over you. He dislikes you engaging in chit-chat, asking a lot of questions, and squandering wealth.
Mm-hmm. So worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then being united. So we spoke about that in the last week. We spoke about that last week about وَاعْتَسِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, the verse of the Quran. We spoke about that last week in the Quran class about knowing being sectarianism, all these things. So don't be divided and uh, stick to your leaders, right? And this is particularly relevant today, because, and it's always been the case. We have for a long time, for the last 1,000 almost like 1,300 years, we've had not amazing rulers, right? And so it's easy to follow somebody like Sayyidina Abu Bakr. It's hard to follow somebody who's not like that. And so it's a part of the fitna of our time and in the world is that, oh, but my ruler isn't that amazing, right? How can I follow somebody who's not that amazing, right? Why do I listen to my parents? My parents aren't religious. Why do I listen to my husband? He's not very religious. Like, he's actually quite a bad person, right? So this is a fitna, it's a test. Why would I listen to you? So yeah, but if you don't, there's going to be huge problems. So it's actually one of the goals, it's important to understand, one of the goals of the kuffar in the media today is to expose the hypocrisy of Muslim rulers. So we might see that as interesting, be like, oh, look what's wrong with this Muslim ruler, and it's important to expose his faults. We have to understand whose agenda is that, right? That's actually the kuffar. So the kuffar will make us weaker by emphasizing our own corruption. Whereas if we just say, yeah, I know they're corrupt, but how can I work it in a good way? Yeah, I know they put a bunch of people in jail for no reason. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know they stole all this money. Yeah, I know. That's what they always do that. They've always done that. Muslim rulers have always done that because Muslim rulers by default are bad. That's just how things are, right? That's just how the world works. By default, people are fake and bad. Okay, so if that's the case, do we still have to follow them? The answer is yes, you still have to follow them. Yeah, but they're corrupt. They don't apply the Sharia. They don't do this. Yeah, just you still have to follow them because that's where your strength is in. You still have to follow your leaders. You still have to listen to your parents. You still have to listen to your husband, even if they're not good people, because that's how your strength. That's where your strength comes from. The shit. So that's an important thing. وَأَنْتُ نَاسِحُ مَنْ وَلَّاهُ اللَّهُ أَمْرَكُمْ. And there's two interesting quotes from the Salaf about bad rulers. Sayyidina Ali, he was asked, like, why is it that there's a civil war during your time, right? But there was no civil war during other times, right? Time of Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Uthman, right? There was no civil war. So, and even like Sayyidina Uthman stopped a civil war. He just let the people assassinate him, basically. So he said, why is it that people, they debate whether or not you're the Khalifa, but they never debated the people before you? Like, what's wrong with you as a leader? And so Sayyidina Ali, he says, it's because they had followers like me and I have followers like you. So the reason why Sayyidina Abu Bakr could do what he did, and Sayyidina Umar could do what he did, and Sayyidina Uthman could do what he did, because he had good followers, right? Whereas I have followers like you, you're not a good people. So that's why there's a huge problem, right? And I think it was al-Awza'i, I can't remember now. One of the Salaf, they said that, said, of the signs you can tell whether Allah is happy with people or not happy with people. And the sign that Allah is not happy with people is He puts bad people in charge of them, right? And Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, who was a very, very tough, a very, very tough and violent and ruler, and he killed lots and lots of righteous people and lots of people, and anybody who challenged him in any way whatsoever, he killed them. He was there at the time of the Sahaba and the late Sahaba, and an old lady saw him in the street. She was like, "Man, you're just you're just like the worst person in the world. You know, I'm an old woman. What are you gonna do? Kill me too? You know, like, why are you so bad?" Right? And he responded with one word. He said, "Kama." He said, like, just as. Kama means just as. What was he referring to? He says, "Kama takunu yuwalla alaykum." Right? So the phrase is, just as you will be, so shall you be ruled. Right? So if you are a people who are obedient and good, you will have a ruler that will treat you well. But if you are a people of corruption and sin and whatever, you're gonna have, that's what you're gonna have. And what is the line in Shakespeare? What trash is Rome, right? So I can't remember the whole line, but basically, Cassius or whoever it um, was saying that, how is it possible that we have somebody as bad as Caesar as our ruler? The only way that's the case is if he's the best of us, that means we're just trash, right? And that is the case, right? So we're not that amazing. That's why we have people like this as our rulers. Anyway, the point is the rest of the hadith, it says, and he hates for you qil muqal chit chat, right? So that's again social media, chit chat. He hates chit chat. So chit chat for women is a waste of time. For men is effeminate and a waste of time, right? So what is the point of that conversation, right? Qil waqal, he said and she said, right? Just it's a waste of time. وَكَثْرَ su'al, and asking lots of questions in the deen, for example. Okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? If it's not a practical question, or you're not trying to learn fiqh or something like that, then don't ask that question because you just get on with your work, right? Or fudul, just being I just in things are interesting. Oh, that's interesting. This is interesting, right? So you ask the question, how can I worship Allah by being on this Instagram page? How can I worship Allah by following this group? How can I worship Allah? Whatever it is. Um, um, al-mal, and wasting money, and that's what the chapter is about, wasting money, right? So you bought a cup of coffee. Why did you buy a cup of coffee? You bought an extra dress. Why did you buy an extra dress? You bought more shoes. You bought a car that cost $10 more than the other one. Why? That $10 is not going to come back. And so why did you why did you buy a car like that? So why did you buy a Porsche? Like how could you worship Allah with a Porsche? What could you do with a Porsche that you can't do with an Audi? What did you can do with the Audi that you can't do with a Volkswagen? Right? What can you do with, I don't know, a Japanese car? What can you do with that you can't do with a Korean car? Right? What can you do with a brand new car that you can't do with a 5-year-old car? Right? So why did you do that? If you have an answer, go ahead. If you have an answer, fine. But for most of us, like there's nothing. Right? We just want it. And so this is how we waste our money. Okay? So qil wa qal, don't be in groups. Be with groups, for example, you're in a group that is going to be doing some khair, in a group that is family, for example, and you're helping, etc. Don't be curious. Don't ask questions just because you're curious. That's not noble, right? That's a low thing to do, right? So curiosity killed the cat. You ask a question, you say, how is it going to be useful to me, right? Min husni islam mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'ni, of the beauty of a person's Islam is that you leave things that aren't relevant to you, right? You ignore things that aren't relevant to you. Okay, wait, man. So, Sister Ilham had a question. Can you elaborate on the 5 good counsels to rulers? How does this apply to our current times when there are scholars calling out other scholars for not publicly criticizing Muslim rulers in relationship to their response to Gaza? I don't know enough about the politics, honestly, and I'm not going to criticize any individual. Okay, I'm not going to say so and so, so and so is like this, and so is like that. All I know is it's not generally a very useful thing to do. for two reasons. Number one, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, right? Um, Number two, we all know that they're corrupt anyway, right? So it's like going along. It's like giving me details about what happens in a bar. I already know what happens in a bar. So why are you telling me? Right? We already know the predicament of the Muslims, that the Muslims in our post um, colonial period that we're in, this post-colonial thing is that we are indirectly ruled by ourselves, that they put up puppet governments. That's what they are, puppet rulers. We already know that. So why are you telling me? Right? Why are you telling me, free dingle? You can go and tell them. I don't have a problem with you go and talk to them. Like you sent a letter, you said, okay, I fear Allah, I'm going to send a letter to Sisi and see if it gets to him and see if it goes through to his head. I don't know. Okay, go ahead, Bismillah. But why are you telling me? What's the benefit? I don't particularly see any, and so I don't see the point of it. Personally, okay, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying personally, I don't see the point of it. I already know the situation. Go and live in a Muslim country, you already see how ridiculous it is, right? And you already know that the ruling kind of the elite, they're not there for the people, and they are just put there to control the country for the sake of other people. So we already know that, right? So A, you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Two, we already know what the general picture is. And then C's like, what are you gonna do about it? So just go and do something. I don't talk, do. That's my, you know. So it's not particularly useful. Or labeling which group is saying this, right? Why is that useful? To know which group is saying this or which group is saying that. It's not particularly useful. Or to expose the hypocrisy of a group or of a ruler, right? I don't see the particular benefit in it, right? So just go and do something good. And this is a key thing. Imam al-Auza'i, he said, it's been narrated, meaning from the Salaf or from the Prophet ﷺ, that when Allah wants good for a people, when Allah wants bad for a people, He inspires them to just argue and not do anything. So just go and do something. Like, don't sit there and talking like, exposing this or exposing that. It's just like, let's just, you know, unless you're close to some royal family, unless you're involved in politics, there's some specific things. But for most of us, it's like, just go and feed the people crying out loud, right? Just go and write letters to, politicians and say, please stop, right? As opposed to trying to expose what's really happening behind the scenes and who's really this and really that. We already know, right? Just go and look at those countries. We already know the picture, the problem is already there. And the Prophet already told us about al-Wahan, right? The hadith of Wahan. The Prophet said, at the end of time, the nations would gather around us and eat us like people would eat from a plate. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, is that because we are few in number? And he said, no, that's not. You will be like, you will be in great in number, but you'll be worthless like the froth on the sea, like the foam on the sea. You'll be like pointless, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make you give you wahan and make the other nations despise you and no longer scared of you. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, what is wahan? He says, love of the dunya and hatred of death. Like you don't want to die anymore, right? All you're interested in is, I'll be Muslim on the condition that I don't die. I'll be Muslim on the condition that I can keep my wealth and my property, right? So I'll support Gaza if I can keep my wealth and property and not risk a civil war on my country and not risk being invaded, and I can guarantee this and this and this, right? So then obviously you're not going to sacrifice and nothing's going to happen, right? So we already know the problem, and and the kuffar also know the problem, and so that's why they know what it is, and so that's why the kuffar, the real fight is in consumerism. That's what it is. So we're all watching TV and buying stuff. That's what they want you to do. As soon as you get into that culture, right? Watching TV and buying things that you can't afford and wanting the dunya, khalas, they've already won. Right? It's already a checkmate. So when you play chess, you don't have to kill the king. Right? If it's a checkmate, it's like meaning the next move is that. So the checkmate is already there. Right? The checkmate is as soon as we allowed television, we intentionally allowed Western television and media and internet into our countries, and we absorbed it and we watch it and we love it. And we love TV shows and we love their music and we love their drama. We love all these things, and we want to buy American cars and we want to have everything that they have on TV. Then, khalas, the game is already over. Right? They've already won. Everything else is just checkmate. That's all. Does that make sense, Sister Alham?
Yes, thank you so much.
But again, there are other people who would totally disagree with me, and I totally respect that because I don't know all the politics. And also, there are individuals who are in certain situations. So I know somebody in a certain country, and I'm not going to mention the name of that country, who works with people in politics. And he said, so the politician told him, he said, I can't speak, but you can. Meaning the politician was in a very sensitive situation where he couldn't speak out about what's happening. So he told somebody else who was connected to him, he said, hey, you can speak, so you should speak. Right? So I'm not a politician. Sheikh Abdul Malik Saadi, for example, one of my teachers, I wouldn't say my teachers, but somebody whose classes I attended, that's what he regularly does. He's Iraqi and he'd regularly go to Iraq and get involved in protests. Right? And, so I am not a specialist in politics and I'm not a politician and I'm not connected to anybody. I'm a nobody. Right? But that's my 2 cents. Wallahu a'lam. Yeah, so there's just another question was about what about scholars staying silent? There's always a situation, it's always been a situation where there's a tyrant and a Muslim tyrant, and scholars are present at the time of the Muslim tyrant, and they have 2 options, either to speak out or not to speak out. So what is wrong is to be a chicken and to fear other than Allah. That's what's wrong. However, it is often the case that scholars will say, don't say anything and don't do anything because you will just be imprisoned or killed and it is no benefit, right? So it's better for you to stay silent and work behind the scenes than for you to say something right now and be imprisoned or be killed, because then nobody will benefit from you, right? So that's another situation, right? I'm not in a country like that. I'm not in a situation like that. Right? I don't know enough about things, but there are many ulama who are like that. Like, well, why didn't this scholar say anything? Why didn't he publicly say anything? Because he knows if I stay where I am, I can work against this system. But if I disappear, I can't do anything. So what's the point? How is it even useful? Right? And that's the same thing with any of these people. So again, let's have amazing husn al-dhan. Let's have amazing good opinion. Okay? Saudi Arabia. You're like, what on earth have you done about Gaza? All right. I'm not saying these people are innocent, but I'm just saying let's have an excess and just exercising husn al-dhan. Okay? You're the king of Saudi Arabia, and you say, listen, my people are people of dunya. They love the dunya. They are not going to go and fight in jihad. They're not going to give up money. They're not going to do anything. All they want is the dunya, halal or haram. Okay. I'm going to follow that route and I'm going to strengthen my country. And within 100 years is my 100-year plan to do this. So you're looking at the beginning of a 100-year plan and you're saying, look at these sellouts. Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, right? Sahayana and then this. Maybe that's the case, but maybe they have a 100-year plan, right? Because once you get involved in that system, you realize what's going on, right? Like Sayyidina Khalid Walid, right? He came back from the battle and everyone was like, oh my God, you ran away. And the Prophet said, he's not a farrar, he's not running away, he's karrar. He's returning with the troops to fight again. So, right? So Our job is not to judge people. And I'm not saying these people are innocent. But I'm just saying, let's be practical. And if you're a politician and you can change things by saying things or doing things, or you're in a particular situation, have particular connections, go ahead. Right? But there are scenarios where it's actually better not to say anything. Honestly, better not to say anything. Right? Because you will achieve more benefit than harm. And B, you don't know the big picture that people are working on. So you're not my judge or your judge to judge anybody, but you can say, what is my sphere of influence, and am I doing that? Right? And so unfortunately, again, what we see with Gaza is people wasting their time watching stuff. It's actually entertainment. Right? What's happening in Gaza? What's happening in Gaza? What's happening in Gaza? What are you doing about it? Nothing. Okay, why are you watching stuff then? Or why are you even talking about it? If you're not doing anything, then stop. Come up with a plan, how to get food there, how to influence your local leaders. Find something you actually can do. Otherwise, be quiet and go and do something else. Go make dua. But what do people do? Social media, 1 hour a day, social media, social media, social media. More images of kids dying, more images. You're just wasting your time. And that's not what they need. It's not beneficial to them whatsoever. And is the shaitan just wasting your time thinking that you feel good because you did something? You didn't. Right? And you are still a person of the dunya. You're still not obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's no good in it. Right? And so we have to focus on what we can do practically and focus on how we're being tricked in these situations. And one of the ways that we're being tricked, and this is what I mentioned before, one of the ways that we're being tricked is that the kuffar are exposing, focusing on the hypocrisy of Muslim rulers in order that we will never be strong, ever. Right? And as analogy, BBC coverage, this was whatever, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, of the Uyghur Muslims in China. Right? BBC coverage. Oh my God, look at what's happening in China with the Muslims. As if you care, right? As if BBC cares about the Muslims in China. What it is you're exposing the faults of your opponents, right? So that's what it's about. And so we often get fooled by things, right? We're Pinocchio in this world, right? We get fooled by the kuffar and in reality, what we're supposed to be doing, we're on Instagram. It's like, I use Instagram because there's more benefit than harm, inshallah. But it's like, where's our alternative to Instagram? We understand that maybe you could spend all of that time coming with an alternative to YouTube and Instagram and using that to fight the machine, right? So there's all sorts of things happening behind the scenes. May Allah forgive us all. So strengthen the ummah by working with our politicians, not against our politicians, right? It's not useful. It doesn't actually go anywhere. Allahu a'lam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates for us chit chat. So for women, it's low. That's a waste. For women, that's a waste of time. For men, it's a waste of time, and it's effeminate. Chit chat is effeminate. Okay. وَكَثْرَةُ سُؤَال, asking dumb questions in the dunya or in the deen, right? وَإِضَاعَةُ الْمَالِ, wasting money. Your house, as big as you need it to be. Your car, as big as you need it to be. Your food, as much as you need to buy. Your clothes, as few as they need to be, etc. Okay. And then the next hadith, 443, inshallah, let's just read this last one because we're running out of time. حدثنا عبد الله بن السعيد قال حدثنا سعيد بن منصور. So just like Imam Malik is one of these powerhouses, Sa'id ibn Mansur, one of these powerhouses. So often we're going to see books that are built on books. So here, Imam Bukhari is studying with a student of Sa'id ibn Mansur. I pick up the Sunan of Sa'id ibn Mansur, and that's a book as well, which is basically a tafsir book. قال حدثنا إسماعيل بن زكريا عن عمرو بن قيس الملائي عن المنهال عن سعيد بن جبير عن ابن عباس في قوله عز وجل وما أنفقتم من شيء فهو يخلفه وهو خير الرازقين قال في غير إسراف ولا تقتير. It says whatever you spend of anything, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of it and look after it for you and give you more. And He is the best of providers. He said yes, unless you're wasting. Right? So you spend of anything, you paid your phone bill, and it was very expensive. You paid your electricity bill, it was very expensive. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you say, oh, I'm doing this to fulfill my responsibility. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you more. Physically or spiritually or however, He will give more to you. but not if you're wasting, right? Not wasting. And then just again, a side point. Remember, somebody asked me, Palestinian subhanAllah, he asked me, he said, doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like us to have nice things, right? And it's true, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes you to have nice things, nice to have nice clothes, etc. It's true. Yeah, but not when people are dying. Right? So when you say, so for us, we have to have our needs. What do you have to have? And your daruriyat, the essentials, and your hajiyat, the things that you need. If I didn't have this, it would be difficult, right? As opposed to kamaliyat, things that will be nice. No, that you don't have things that are nice because people are dying, right? And so that's not right. So you have daruriyat, I have to have this. Hajiyat, life would be very difficult if I didn't have this. Right? Life would be hard if I didn't have this. Kamaliyat, life would not be hard if you didn't have that. You don't need to have that. So you don't. So get rid of it. Right? May Allah forgive us all. Inshallah, we'll stop here. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.